Hi, I'm Embers Tide. I use he, him.
I'm Dabe Allen. I use he, him.
And I'm Michael Sinclair II, and I use he, him.
And this is Insight Check, where we delve into the dungeons of your bad decisions and retrieve the treasure of wisdom. Which is what we like to say. Usually we talk about issues of interest for the TTRPG community. Today, I have two guests who I'm very proud and happy to welcome. We have Dabe Allen from Penny Arcade, and we have Michael Sinclair from Encounter RP and other pursuits in the D&D universe. I'm going to introduce them a little bit, but I want to give the brief introduction. Today we're going to talk about a bit of a special topic. We're going to talk about fitness, physical health, and physical pursuits, the wellness of the body to complement the wellness of the mind. And my hope in doing this is not to be braggadocious, but really, I think when I see and when interactions I have with folks in the TTRPG community, I see there's a varying level of interest, and for some, this might not trigger that interest, but for some, there's the interest in how you pursue a goal that's not, mastering DMing or min-maxing a certain class of a character who you like to role play, but it is your IRL existence that you want to maybe set a goal for, level up, improve, whatever that goal might be for you. My goal today, and what I am very excited to talk with these guests about, is how they've found ways to pursue and achieve those goals. And with that, I'll shut up and introduce both of them. So I like to start with Dabe Allen, who some of you may know from Penny Arcade. Dabe Allen is originally a programmer who developed skills in graphic artistry. He's an accomplished photographer. If you watch Acquisitions Incorporated streams, you've seen him as a PC role player. You've also probably seen some of his work in D&D live events as a photographer of great quality. And I'm very happy to have him here with us.
I'm a senior designer at Penny Arcade along the rest of us on the design team. I'm really happy with what we get to make every day there. A lot of work in the AI kind of space and C-team stuff as well. Mostly a lot of front-facing pack stuff and AI stuff.
Thanks, Dave. Michael Sinclair II, he is a computer scientist. He is a veteran. He is a DM and DM cast member of Encounter RP, and he is very active in the D&D and Critter community. So many of you have often seen him at his Twitter handle at Michael Crits, and happy and excited to introduce Michael.
Happy to be here. Right now I'm a computer science student, so I'm a baby programmer compared to Dave, but I'm getting there, and just trying to fit D&D, social media, and all that in where I can, so just happy to be here.
And I'm really happy to have you. So I kind of want to jump into it with a little bit of a background question, because I think everybody who has sort of a standard practice or a discipline in physical fitness and health has a history. For me, I started off as a very, very heavyset kid who had two tools for fitness when I started off trying to get healthy. I had a lot of cheap tuna fish, and I had a bunch of old Tybo fitness tapes. And I
remember those.
Yeah.
I did a few of those.
Billy Blanks, man.
Billy Blanks is an all-star.
Yeah. He was my 1 a.m. to 3 a.m. gym time, like every night. And it was crazy, and I wouldn't recommend that, but it worked, and it got me kind of on the road to having improved fitness, being able to do a little bit more, move a little bit better, get a little bit farther. Those were my goals, was just to be able to run around a track once kind of thing. And once I got that, it felt pretty good, and I started to feel better every hour. And so I continued from there, and I am sort of a small figure, so I'm not the kind of person who would be into football, American football or rugby or hockey, but could be a pretty good boxer, could be a pretty good weightlifter. And so those are some of the things that I gravitated towards. And each of those showed me different ways to condition and what it feels like to be physically exhausted in various ways. And, some of it was good for me, some of it wasn't my style, but it's all helped me kind of get to a point now where, as someone in their late 30s, I guess, I sort of know how to, and I try to stay ascribed to a discipline that keeps me fit and keeps me healthy. And occasionally I will enter like a CrossFit competition, that sort of thing. And just the ability to do that is something that has been valuable to me and has helped me along the way. So that's kind of my history and background with fitness. And I kind of wanted to hear how it kind of entered into both your lives and where it is now.
Sure. I guess I'll start out. I was pretty, I don't want to say outright unhealthy, but I definitely had no idea what I was doing regarding nutrition. And majority of my activities that I like doing were mostly just seated, PC gaming and reading and all that kind of stuff.
Totally.
Throughout my college years. So I developed quite a severe, forward head posture. And I was always, I'm 6'6", so I'm a pretty big dude.
Yeah.
And I grew up to get taller than my own shower head. So I had like a lot of forward head lean. So honestly, one of my main goals when I first got to realizing that you could fix that was just to strengthen my back up and to kind of get my posture upright. And I think my highest that I weighed in college was 300 pounds. And I got down to, I think, just through forcing myself to go to the gym and not really enjoying it at all. And eating, I think at the time, Atkins diet was popular and really, really actually worked out for me. And it's still like a modified, I do keto now. And I've had great success my whole life on that program. But that initial 60 to 70 pounds that I lost on that really opened up the world of being physical, I guess, to me, because it didn't hurt nearly as bad to run anymore. Now, running is still something that I hate, and I talk a lot of smack on it whenever possible. So eventually, after doing a few, I did some half marathons just because I was like, all right, I'm gonna run so much, I'm gonna like it. I started. That doesn't happen. That never happens. They all lie to you. Everyone's like, look for your runner's high or whatever. Go there. And that's a, oh my God. I wish I knew that, a long time ago. So I think when I was about 24, I went to the gym with the intent of learning to strength train. And I found a program called, not starting strength. I did 5x5 strong lifts, which was just a periodization lifting method. And to me, it felt like gaming.
Yes.
Because each time you go, you add just 5 pounds to the bar. And at first, that's not a lot, but it gets there and it really gets your numbers up. And seeing those results and knowing that you're doing better each day, you truly feel like you are leveling up. So got really into that and started doing competitive Olympic weightlifting. My body doesn't really enjoy that kind of high intensity performance, and through injury, I've decided to retire officially from that already. But I learned a whole lot, and I truly love strength sports and strength and conditioning stuff. And these days, I'm mostly just down in the PA gym that we built, still lifting, still doing everything regularly, probably 5 days a week, and doing a bit of boxing for cardio. But I'd like to talk to you a little bit more about that, actually, Embers, just to hear about your journey there. But that's about it for me right now.
It's the most I ever threw up, and it changed my life forever.
I believe you, 100%.
But it's funny, when I was a kid, I had to take a PE class in high school every semester. And the only one that I was confident enough to do socially and be remotely qualified to perform to standard par at was gym, the weight room.
Yeah.
And so I kind of was conscripted by my high school requirements to get into the weight room, and it was all run by their football coach, and he had a strength training background, and that was like the gateway moment for me, where I started to see all of this as like numbers and recovery and intervals and all that little stuff, and it was all very quantified and gamey.
No, that's awesome. That's exactly the parallel I made in my brain, that I like, it all clicked and I was like, that's perfect. That's what I needed.
Michael, I'd love to hear kind of the history of fitness to you.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I've never actually thought of my history of fitness, and I'll try and summarize it because I feel like thinking about it while you guys were talking, there's quite a bit there. So I've always been as a child, I was always a really skinny kid, which I got into soccer. It was one of the sports I actually stuck with, because I could run around a lot, and it didn't take too much. And I'm a huge grinder, so running around, being exhausted and tired, but still trying to go after the ball was super good for me. And then at 19, I entered into the U.S. Navy at 118 pounds, which was super interesting.
Could I ask roughly how tall you were?
I think I was 5'7".
Okay.
I'm 5'8" barely now, so not much of a change or difference.
But yes, okay.
Yeah, and after boot camp, which was like 2 months, I was 132 pounds. So I gained some weight while I was there, which was great.
All right.
They were you basically were just like kind of not forced to eat, but there was times where you should eat and you would feel exhausted, so you make sure you ate.
Like you would regret not taking that opportunity.
Right, yeah. And I still have trouble eating. That's like one huge thing of nutrition is like I will easily forget to eat or not forget to eat, just decide not to more than eat. It's kind of like my stressor is let's not eat instead of eat, but learn to eat. After being in the military at 132 pounds, I eventually met up some guys after I came back from my first deployment, which I was undesignated, and then became a medic. And at medic school, I met some guys who were like basically SEAL and SWIC, both special forces in the Navy.
Mm-hmm.
They decided to choose a different path.
Sure.
They still continue to do the same workouts that they had when they were, still trying to go for SEAL or SWIC. And so I ended up working out with those guys. And at the time we did a lot of like running or cross like weightlifting and body weight stuff. And at the time I didn't know it was actually just like kind of like the predecessor to CrossFit. I think CrossFit existed at that time, but it was still like trying to be molded into what it is now.
Underground.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a little baby.
Exactly. And it was like a baby little CrossFit thing. I didn't know what it was at the time. And my first workouts with them, they were the most intense workouts I've had. I would essentially, the first 3 or 4 or 5 times I ended up working out with them, I used to like throw up in the trash can nearby because it was just like that intense for me. It eventually became like throwing up in the shower post-workout. I don't recommend throwing up during your workouts. It's not a good thing to do. It was just at the time, that's kind of what happened for me.
You don't always have a choice.
Right.
Both of you talk about throwing up, and it's not a thing that I've done or strive to do ever. No. So it's crazy to me, but I avoid puking more than anything in the world. So
yeah,
maybe that's it.
Yeah. If there's any one of 2 disclaimers for this episode is that we do not encourage retaining and using all calories you consume.
And I'll lead up to a reason why I think I do it more often than usual. I learned in the military, I had G6PD, which is, I forget what the exact thing is about it. Used to be a medic, but essentially my red blood cells break down more easily and don't carry oxygen as well. So I feel like in my workouts, compared to someone who's right next to me, maybe same body composition, I feel like 30% weaker and feel fatigued faster. But it's something I work through. After being as a medic trainee, I've eventually a couple years later went to a sniper platoon, and there was a lot of hiking with a lot of weight, with running sometimes like hills going 15 miles. Like it progressed. I'm kind of skipping a huge section there, but it progressed over time and everything was always hard. It never got super easy, or I just like got mentally more accustomed to it. Someone talked about, or Dave talked about running and how it kind of sucks. It's like, yeah, it really sucks until you get into a mind frame. I wouldn't call it runner's high. I would call it like runner's torment. Your brain just kind of clicks into a mode where you're just like, this isn't going to stop until I reach my end goal. And so you kind of just like numb out everything and just one foot in front of the other. And I did Spartan races last year. I completed the Spartan trifecta, which was a huge deal for me because I, like you guys, kind of hate running. And that's kind of what my journey has been. Sorry for that really lengthy process there.
Oh, you're good. You're good.
Nah, no worries. So if that's the past, Dabe, you mentioned it a little bit. Michael, you mentioned it a little bit. Can you talk, I guess, a little bit about what your routine is now? And the reason is, if there are folks who are thinking about trying to start their own, that might be a baseline where we can talk about, here's what we do today, why the pros and cons, and how we defend that time, or how we prioritize that time, or how we make sure we maintain those resources for us that we need to achieve those things, to do those things on a regular basis.
I think currently my main things that I'm doing are, I'm actually trying a little bit more volume in my strength training. So I'm doing kind of like close to the FAT, I think it's called, routine, PHAT. So I'm doing strength movements followed by quite a bit of volume. And I previously was very much in the strength training only kind of side of things. I was like, I'm never doing bicep curls. That's not for me. I just want to be strong. Then I was, throwing up pretty decent numbers in Olympic, but my arms were tiny, and I started to feel like offset a little bit. So now that I've stopped doing that, I want to just try to see what I can get in the other direction. So I'm actually trying some higher volume stuff right now. I am occasionally rowing. I would prefer to do, but you can't do that outside unless you got quite a few things and a large garage. So as far as cardio goes, it's hit the heavy bag, kind of have like a 20 to 30 minute routine on that. And that's honestly, I wish I was more skilled. And I think that my next the next goal of mine in regards to that is to like truly take some boxing classes and kind of learn how to throw actual punches. Ryan Hartman from PA and C Team fame boxed for I think two or 3 years, and if you ask him, he'll run you through a very narcissistic view at everything, but a very good routine and how to throw a punch. But I'd like to just really kind of focus on that a little bit more. And I do have a really interesting attraction towards jiu-jitsu.
Okay.
Because I've had these dreams my entire life where I'm in a fight with someone, street fight, fist fight, doesn't matter. And I go for a punch and I can't punch. And it's just like the slowest punch. It's so soft. I'm sure you've had a very similar dream or something similarly frustrating in a dream. However, I took one.
I've had this exact dream.
Yes, it sucks so bad. I took one jiu-jitsu class at my gym that did Olympic weightlifting that I learned in Portland. And after that 45-minute class, I've strangled people in my sleep to death all the time. And I don't mean in my dreams, just to clarify, no one, I've not harmed anyone, but I go for the choke and I can squeeze instead of punch. And I've been dominating my dream fights now, which feels a lot better than like not being able to punch someone. So I realize a lot of this is in violence, and I don't mean that.
If your astrally projected consciousness is lethal, that's a pretty good feeling.
Yes. So because of that, I think I want to do a little bit more jiu-jitsu. The hard part there is timing and money and classes and all that. And
for sure.
Getting all the gi and all the gear for that is a little daunting up front.
Oh, yeah.
It's so funny you mentioned that dream. So I would have this recurring dream when I first started boxing in college, because I was, this like little undergrad kid who was doing it to learn, but also who was doing it as almost like a tourist at first, right? And
it's a backup confidence, right?
And in my class, the coach was the former Olympic coach of the team from Bangladesh, which is very strange. You find that strange people wind up teaching in college sports for some reason, in like non-division. So I went to MIT, and their only quality athletes are all female. So like the intramural boxing class was this odd mix of like hardcore Eastern European postdoctoral mathematics students.
Oh, those ladies will mess you up.
Yes. And like you would just see them, like they did this routine that they were trained at where they would imagine it's almost like jumping rope, but instead of spinning a rope around your body, you're kind of pressing a 45-pound plate up into the air over your head while you jump and bounce up and down with that kind of a cadence. And they would just do it for like 5 minutes straight. Like it was nothing.
Sounds
Jesus.
terrible.
Yeah. And so in the very beginning of all that, I was having this dream where I would be confronted in an alleyway. Boston has tons of these sketchy, dank alleyways. And I would try to throw a punch and it would feel like I was underwater. And it created this whole waking, sleeping nightmare of like, how do I just make this body do something simple?
Exactly.
Jeez.
Well, jujitsu is a secret. If you've taken one
There
or
you
not
go.
yet, you can squeeze.
Become a lethal dream ninja.
Exactly.
Michael, you tell us a little bit about what you kind of do currently, kind of what your goals are and what your practice is.
Right now, I'm actually trying to get back into the gym. I kind of took the semester off to. I know you probably don't want to hear this in your podcast, but it's realistic. It happens. But I've taken the semester off to essentially focus on my sophomore year of college. This is my spring semester, and I was trying to get my grades up high enough or pass all my classes because I knew this would be the roughest one before I transferred over to another university. So
This is like you said, this is real life. This is how you maintain something long term.
I totally haven't done much stuff in the active department other than rock climbing here or there, maybe going for a run or two in CrossFit very sparingly. But now that that's all over, going into my summer semester, I went for a run yesterday, felt really good, and I'll be getting back into CrossFit when I move up to Spokane. So, but yeah, the main goal for me and the pursuits I'm going for is just healthy weight gain, going up to 185. I'm 175 now. I didn't leave off of where I've stopped, but
There's a big gap there.
Yeah.
I left the military at 155, which was 2 years ago almost now. And it's taken like 2 years and 20 pounds later. Like, that's the trouble I have with my body. I know some people are like, oh my gosh, like, that's an amazing thing. It's so hard for you to gain weight. But, something that was difficult for me is feeling more masculine in my body instead of like feeling like this skinny person who feels like we can get pushed around. So I'm happy I'm at 175. There's some stuff I got to clean up on my own body, but
Feel that.
yeah, basically getting back into CrossFit, going back into running, doing some body weight exercises to kind of burn some of this stuff off. And you guys are kind of pulling me into getting in some sort of contact sport. I was in it for 6 months and it was pretty fun. It's definitely one of the scariest things that I've done. And I usually head towards scary things.
What were you into?
It was a mixed martial arts class in Bremerton, Washington. It was you would have like the striking classes.
So truly like mixed martial arts, because striking and groundwork.
Yeah, and then like an hour or two later after that session finished, you would have your Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu classes. So
Lots of grappling.
which was fantastic for me because I was smaller then, and my friends would kick my butt in the striking classes. But since I'm really good at memorizing technique and feel really good about moving my body around, being dexterous, it was kind of easy to grasp onto the jiu-jitsu. And I had a taekwondo background for the mixed martial arts there for a bit, so like my kicks were always pretty solid. It was just like striking with my fist and moving my head and body around that I always kind of got clocked, so felt scary.
You make a good point that you had to step away from it to focus on something else. I think that at some point is going to happen to everybody, and I think that for me, when it's happened to me, it came with a lot of anxiety and angst that I perseverate over choices like this way more than I should. And that's one of my defining qualities. But the thing that I think can help is the understanding that, yes, you can take a pause and there is, here's why I'm doing it. Here's for how long and how much I'm going to step away from this certain thing that I like, but that you do come back to it. You do have that capability. It's not like if you get out of sync with something, you can't get back into it.
Yeah.
Was it hard for you? You mentioned you did a run and it felt really good. Was it hard for you deciding to step away and then feeling ready to come back?
I think it was for the first like month or two, and then after a month or two, it kind of just is like, okay, this is okay. But there'd be times I look into the mirror, and this is probably the most like body fat I've ever had in my whole life. So, and it's not much. It's like probably maybe like 5-10 pounds of just like, you can visually see it, and it'll probably like shed off in like 2 or 3 months. But it was still like, I don't want to diminish body dysmorphia, but in a sense, I just felt like this is not me. This is not my body. This doesn't feel great. That would kind of motivated me to go for a run the other day and now be more active. But it was difficult for the first 2 months, and kind of progressing after that, looking at my body change in ways I've never seen before. And I'm really happy to step back into it. It's interesting, and I'm ready to get back into fitness. It's actually kind of daunting to kind of do this podcast today because I'm like, I haven't been as fit as I usually been, but I promise I'm getting back. And, I have been fit my whole life. Like, this is the biggest pause I've ever taken in my whole life as far as like trying to be active. So
I think it's important to talk about the anxiety and kind of depression that can go through you when you have to stop doing something that you've been doing. I feel like for a long time, when I was Olympic weightlifting, I almost made it a personality trait. It was a big deal on how hard I went down there, and I was always solo for the most part, except for competition stuff. So when I got my third hip injury, which was just a groin tear, it was so difficult for me to be like, maybe I shouldn't squat 5 days a week anymore to give time to heal and everything. But I feel like I went through a decent depression during that time when I couldn't necessarily lift, and I would go to the gym and maybe do a bunch of pull-ups and stuff because I could still do that kind of stuff. But knowing that you can get back to it, or it's like, okay, I can't do it now, but I can do it in 2 months. Focusing on that, I think, is super duper important because I feel like I've always been afraid that one day I'm just going to wake up and I'm be like, I don't want to go to the gym anymore. And then I'm going to go back to the way I used to be. And I think that I've had a lot of growth since then, and that scares me a lot. So I think trying to just stay positive about everything, and that we can come back to this. We can, get back to where we used to be, and that's okay.
Yeah. I agree. I think the experience that comes to mind for me, so I was in the gym constantly in school. All that time I had access to a school gym in Massachusetts or Pennsylvania or wherever it was. And that was how I kind of got my head right, because the rest of the time it was all this academic stress. And got out of school, different lifestyle. I have a couple of kids now. And so for a lot of people, when those kinds of life changes happen, you are just kind of ripped out of whatever your old pastimes and hobbies were for extended periods of time. And you're put through this kind of crucible of sleep deprivation and trying to figure out how tiny humans work, and then trying to get back into that. I felt not only anxiety and guilt of having kind of abandoned that part of myself, but this is what I'm telling myself in my head at the time, being older and having this guilt where it's this is a very self-indulgent thing you're doing, going to the gym. You should probably be mixing some food or making sure nap schedules are being maintained, all those little things that you can always refer to as, these are my responsibilities now. And for me to be in the gym by myself and just kind of indulging in that, it feels like you're being selfish. And then what I gradually found was that as I sort of fell out of that routine and didn't supplement it with necessarily the healthiest habits, I started to have a much harder time with the basics, just being able to sustain the normal energy of a normal day, focus and attention at work and all that stuff. And, it's a long road, but over the past year or so, I've kind of developed a pattern and a routine. I tend to go at 4:30 in the morning to the gym 3 days a week for dedicated strength training time. That's given me back a whole bunch of stuff that manifests itself in, time outside of the gym with the little kids and at the job and all that stuff, being able to focus, having that energy and having the confidence. And I don't think I could have stopped myself from feeling that guilt, stress, and anxiety before, but I'm really happy that it didn't go on and that I did one day wake up and just sort of not think about it, just go and do the various things, because it helps improve everything.
Yeah. And I think going back to the main topic, I think for today is where we're talking about how what we see people online do and what kind of reality and what's attainable.
Yeah.
I think lately, normally when I'm working out heavily and doing CrossFit, I love watching the CrossFit videos, making Twitter videos or Instagram videos of me working out. And when I was going through this hiatus, it was hard for me to look at those videos and man, these people are crushing it, or I see these people progressing, and I'm I am not doing that right now. But even when I am doing it, it's hard to see some those really high end people like Lauren Fisher, or you see, those CrossFit stars like Rich Froning, and they're just putting out insane weight, and you're like, that process took them a while, and they also have different body types. And
Yeah.
I have G6PD, and it's like I always have to just go to the gym. And we were talking about like injuries and things that we've sustained, and like working out too much, and trying to step back. And I've realized like health, being athletic and healthy and being better at fitness is a holistic kind of thing. It's like, okay, if I want to work out tomorrow, I need to not drink tonight. I need to sleep well. I need to eat well when I wake up, like a bowl of oatmeal before I go to the gym so I don't feel lightheaded. And then I also need to, when I work out, don't push myself too hard. There might be like a lady who's at the gym who's just like throwing out insane weight, and I can't match her. Like I need to know that I can't match her, even though this is like, she's putting out crazy weight, and then I have like my masculine ego just like, oh, you should put out more weight than her. And like,
Yeah, these are very strongly conditioned senses for a lot of people, and they're built into the brain from a very young age and very consistently.
And it's complete BS.
Yeah, it's so weird. I have that tick, and I lift mostly alone. But if I ever go to a gym where there's other people, I'm like, I'll put on 5 pounds more, and I'll make sure I'm doing some really good snatches or something. Yeah, it could be anyone, and I'm just like, I should I should assert my dominance here, and that's really dumb in a super dumb way. And I can a way of thinking, and I can acknowledge that, but it is coded in there somewhere, and I don't like when it comes out.
Yeah, that's something I've done well in the past like year or two. Is just like, okay, that lady, that person, that dude, whoever they are, they, them, they're putting out crazy more weight, or I should, like, I'm close enough to match them. And sometimes it's a better day for me if I don't feel good after I leave the gym and my body doesn't hurt. I'm not sad that I didn't match them, or like, all these things. It's something that I've definitely had to work out. Being in the gym is just like working around others and appreciating the work that they've done to kind of get to that point. And so that's been something that's been huge for me lately.
Yeah, so I'm a very kind of introverted person. One of the things that I've found is like a little trick that I can play on myself is I tend to go and compliment people at the gym, which might make me sound like a lunatic, but like if I see somebody who is really leaving it all on the mat, so to speak, and really, really focused on, what their goals are that day or that moment, like it gives me, it's such a positive reinforcer for me to go up and just be supportive and complimentary, whether they're doing half the weight that I might do or 5 times the weight that I might do, just reacting irregardless to that. I don't know if it helps them. I hope it does, but it's helped me a lot to sort of break down what feels to me like a little bit of a silo where everybody goes to this place and the sort of alpha dominance displays all get triggered like to a greater or lesser extent. So that's been like a funny trick for me. And it's actually opened up to me that like the person who is 4 times as strong as me is maybe having a rough day because the only thing that's stuck in their head that day is somebody who's 2 times stronger than them.
There's always a Goku out there, and they're always going to beat you, and that's okay.
Totally.
Yeah.
So I have a question. We've been talking a lot about strength training and running. Those are things that you can do alone or you can do with friends. Have you brought friends, colleagues into this world? And if you kind of have, how did you do it and how did it go?
Oh, I definitely go from like a mentorship kind of approach of, hey, let's start here. Little progress is best progress, and match what they're doing. If we're running, then I just run at their pace. If we're working out and lifting weights, I just match their weight. I just kind of focus on, hey, let's not break this person or make them feel lesser than or anything of the sort, because I feel like it's easy for someone to kind of feel deflated or not wanting to work out with you or continue to work out if they don't feel great about themselves. I've definitely been in the position where I've worked out with people who have done the opposite. They're like, oh no, work out my weight, and like, we're gonna run as fast as I am and really push yourself. And then I just feel terrible. I have to recover longer, and it's just it didn't help me, like, as far as not ego, but it didn't help me confidence wise. And so when I try and bring someone along, and the ways it's been successful is, hey, let's just go little by little and give them like words of affirmation. I'm just like, hey man, you're doing really great, and let's start off where you're starting off and go from there.
When I was hired at Penny Arcade, I remember talking to Robert Koo, and I was like, this was peak Olympic weightlifting time for me. And I was like, can I build a gym in our warehouse as part of my, getting hired? And he's like, yeah, I think that's okay. But he was like, but if anybody wants to, learn, you have to teach them. And I was like, that's exactly what I was going to suggest. So actually, I've ran a fair amount of the PA staff through some strength training programs just to kind of throw it out there and like, hey, this is what worked for me. I used to hate lifting. I used to hate running, and I've started trying this, and maybe it would work for you too. And I try to frame it like, right on the whiteboard, and kind of try to make things akin to an RPG or a game or something like that. But really just doing a periodization of, micro loading every time, kind of just like doing starting strength or strong lifts. And, some people would be into it after a week, and some people would be like, I don't know if this is for me. And that's totally okay. And, but a few that would surprise you just stuck it out and got down there. I can say Jerry Holkins, squatting 2 plates was a sight to behold, and he did it well and fast and strong, and I'm so proud of him. However, when his role at the company, when he truly became CEO, his time went to hell. So unfortunately, he hasn't been back down there since, but I know he always talks about it because it was kind of during that time when he was like, I'm going to try to wean off the Lexapro a little bit because I feel like I'm working out so much that my anxiety has just been flat out like going away. So he found that it worked well for him mentally and physically. And, I was super happy to lead him there, or help him kind of understand how things work. So, you can probably ask him next time you're at a PAX just about how that all went for him. But it seemed super duper positive.
It's very cool.
Yeah.
It's harder to scale, of course. What I'm thinking of in the back of my mind is what got this idea in my head to invite you guys on and bring this topic up was I follow some fitness Twitter. I follow some CrossFit Twitter. I learn snatch technique from people who are willing to like deconstruct Olympic weightlifting at tryouts and talk about how the form is, strengths and weaknesses of a given form of a given movement. But there's also this kind of little D&D fitness community, which is small, but I find it to be very, very positive. And it's just a hashtag. It's not a whole thing, but the people there are very supportive, very positive, and I find they're at all stages of and all different pursuits of personal and physical fitness. But it's certainly akin to the people who post the super high-end IG videos or Twitter videos and during their competitions. But there also is an openness within D&D fitness to just be honest that this is a hobby. This is not someone's profession. They're not a fitness influencer. This is just something that they like. It's something that makes them feel good and helps them. And some people share what they're doing and what their programming is. For people who are looking to get started with something, do you think that there's a way that you would be able to boil down kind of how to establish goals and follow them? And if there's something that you found that's kind of like a little bit of a gamifying twist that's helped you, or something else? But I think there probably is a group out there who is looking at this for the first time, whatever their age might be. They're seeing people in their community talking about it. It's getting them interested. They don't have the experience and they might not have the resources for a trainer or whatever, but they want to set a goal and they want to follow that goal and achieve that goal. Do you think there's something that comes to mind for you about how you've found ways to help you do that?
I'll tackle it from 2 fronts. The first one is setting really small goals. I know people say that all the time, but even or I've seen examples where people set small goals. They're still pretty huge. And I would probably say micro goals of like, hey, today when I was working on like double unders, I was like, hey, I'm going to work on getting 10 double unders or 5 double unders because I don't know how to do this and it sucks and it hurts when I smack myself with the rope. It's like, let's just do 5 instead of someone being like, yeah, I'm going to do like, 20 to go. That's the goal. But mine was just like, let's do 5. And I was like, okay, I got 5 down. Let's do 10. And then I was like, okay, every day I'm going to do at least 20. And then it became like, hey, let's do 20 every hour during my study break. And it became like, now I have double unders and people will compliment me online. So I'm just like, sweet.
That's awesome.
Another way I think where D&D and D&D fitness comes together in unison is, hey, today I'm working on, let's say, running today. So I'm like, okay, today I'm trying to raise my constitution like modifier. And that's kind of how I think about it. Or if I'm lifting, like, hey, you know, I hit that squat. Let's like look at my strength, not squat, my snatch. I'm like, let's look at a strength saving throw. Let's see if I could hit this max like snatch. And when I hit it, I'm like, hey, my strength modifier went up. And just little things like that where I relate it back to other hobbies that I have continues to motivate me. And like I said, keeping the goals micro instead of like small goals, because I still feel like people make really big goals from small ones, and just doing what you can do and that motivating you to your next micro or small goal is what's really helpful for at least me. And that's what I've done.
Now, I don't have an entirely full understanding of the community, the D&D fitness community, but is there such a thing of like a character sheet based fitness regimen? Because I feel like that's super duper awesome. Like you explained it there perfectly, to like where you did your 1 rep max, you upped it, and then of course your strength would go up by 1, you know, permanently. And I think that is a great way to kind of look at like, you know, maybe I want to just be an all around character, or maybe I want to have my constitution higher, so I want to be like more of a long distance runner. But is there anything that's out there like that?
Not yet.
Let's do it. TM.
I agree. I will say one of the one project I've been working on, setting up workouts that are sort of dice based. So you'd have your hit dice for a certain movement, and that could be predominantly that's based around repetitions. So you would roll, 8d8 for single under jump rope, or you would roll 1d4 for like a mileage of run, something like that. And you'd be able to scale the hit dice as you became more of a veteran athlete in this way. So I have this construct where you have like the monk workout, the barbarian workout, the cleric or paladin workout. It's still a little bit ham-fisted in how you try to customize to that.
When you say this stuff, I see UI in my brain, but that's just because of how I'm wired. But we should talk about this later.
I would love to. My goal with this and all things D&D, so I'd say I'm like, if I were being very bright, very high on myself, I'd say I'm a jack of all trades. I'm more of like a 4 of all trades. But what makes me happiest in contributing to a community like this is just kind of thinking of clever or enriching or content that holistically helps people. So I would love to release something like this. The only thing that is a sticker for me is it always is kind of open source for me. That's like where my head is very much at. So if we could build something like this, it would be kind of like a pro bono project.
Sounds similar to what I did when I first started, working out as a corpsman or a medic. We had this one thing called the deck of cards. I don't know if you guys have ever done this sort of deck of cards workout.
That's my home for the holidays, and all I have is a basement and deck of cards, and it sucks.
Yeah. It does. It takes like 2 hours every time.
God.
But no, that's something you can definitely do. And almost like, you have your wild magic surge tables, and you have like, or you could just like look at all the wizard spells or druid spells and like call those different sort of workouts and roll for those. Like that would totally work as well.
I think so. I think it would be great. I like the sorts of ways you can gamify it that are tangible and relevant to people who have RPGs or D&D as a hobby or a passion or a love, I think I'd be very very spiritually healing to do something like that. I think that would be very enriching to be able to offer that to somebody, because I think it might help.
Do you think DDP yoga would sue us if we made D&D yoga? Is that too close?
I would just worry that DDP would come and beat me up.
Yeah, I mean, I want to be his best friend, but still, maybe we can work something out.
Better a friend than a recipient of a suplex.
I agree.
I really appreciate the chance to talk with you about this, and I appreciate your time. I know it's precious. I know you both have a lot going on, so thank you very, very much. If I could kind of close with one thing, are there any big goals or events or challenges that you have your eye on in 2019, whether it's becoming more of a lethal dream ninja or something like the Spartan trifecta thing?
I think I do. Mine is my wife is a huge climber. We just got married in February.
Nice, congrats.
Hey, congrats.
Thank you. She's a huge rock climber. She's been rock climbing forever, and my goal is essentially just get way better at rock climbing, do some more multi-pitch climbing. I've only done 2 of those, and it scares the big Jesus out of me just being exposed.
Scares the big man right out of me.
Yeah, I mean, I've fast rope out of helicopters, and I've rappelled down huge towers,
No big deal.
but like something about just sitting there and like being exposed with nowhere to go during a multi-pitch climb is like really scary sometimes. So it's still like
And you like being scared.
yeah, and it's apparently I didn't know this until this podcast. So apparently I just like
The horror game.
You
being
gravitate
scared.
right towards it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just like whatever is scary, let's go towards that.
Wait, so I have to stop you though. What is a multi-pitch climb?
So a multi-pitch climb is, you probably have seen it maybe through some sort of movie or documentary or whatever it might be. So, if you go to a climbing gym, usually it's a single pitch, meaning that you see the end of the rope right at the top, and then once you're done with the end of the rope, you come back down. Multi-pitch is you go up one length of rope like you would probably at a gym, in a climbing gym, except it's outside. And instead of stopping right there and coming back down, you stay up there, you anchor yourself and reattach rope and fix it up or however, and then the next person or yourself leads again and goes up another however many feet of rock, and then you tie yourself off and then belay the person below you, and so on and so forth. It's kind of like a baton pass, but not really. It's just like you're scaling yourself up a mountain one by one with a partner, and you're trying to go up. So multi-pitch is essentially how much pitches it takes to complete a climb.
Oh.
It gives you Popeye forearms. I can tell you that.
Terrifying.
Yeah. And other than that, now that I forget what my snatch kind of max weight was, but probably crushing that, because snatches are always super fun for me. And
I agree.
also my clean and jerk, getting that to... I think I've hit 215. Yeah, I've hit a 215 clean and jerk before, which was like the craziest thing I've ever, I would never imagine it. And trying to get into the 250 club now, so we'll see. But
I just want to pause because I just dawned on me. Are there any resources that y'all would recommend for people who want to learn more about these lift movements? So we talk about cleans and clean and jerks and snatches. These are very technical lifts.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
I would consider that hard mode.
Yeah.
That's like after you're into the idea of lifting for a year or two, I think you can choose a path. This is your specialization path.
Yes.
You can go into powerlifting or Olympic weightlifting, or I guess you can do CrossFit. That's also a third,
that's what I do.
kind of down the middle. There you
Yes.
go. And that's a bit more constitution based and not my style, and that's okay.
That's okay.
Yeah, it's totally
I'm not a heavy grinder. I can tell you that.
Oh, I grind, boy.
I go for that big one, and I feel good about that. But the kicking your legs afterwards, I'm not into that.
You're right. It's a very, very different path. You're right. But how did you, you kind of came to that your own way. Looking back and ever since, are there resources that maybe you've shared with others around the workplace or with friends who are interested in that?
I honestly start every single person out with just like, hey, what are your goals? And if they're strength oriented, then of course I pretty much lead off with, hey, strong lifts works for me, and this is why it worked for me, and I think it might work for you. Maybe we should try it together.
Yeah.
And then I run them through kind of an A day and B day. That to me was so motivating outright that I just kind of let that go and see and foster and go down there and give them form checks and stuff like that. When it comes to the more advanced stuff, that's when I just kind of went to YouTube and I started just researching I kind of I like the Cal Strength videos. I like John North a lot. I think he's fun, and so I'm gonna watch all his videos, and that got me really interested to learn. However, I think Olympic weightlifting is there's so much detail and subtleness to all the lifts that you really someone has to teach you that knows. You can't learn that one online. You're just going to really set yourself up to hurt yourself. And especially coming from a CrossFit gym, where I'm sure you've seen coaches that are good at it and coaches that are bad at it. So you really want to learn from someone that can show you the ropes there.
What I did for myself was I did the same thing as Dave. I would look up the same kind of, I forgot what you just mentioned, the Cal Fit or Cal
Strength.
Yeah.
But yeah, I looked at their videos. I looked at, the official CrossFit videos, and for me, I was like, hey, I know a whole bunch of people have hurt themselves trying to do this on their own. Mm-hmm. Luckily, I had some people who are like huge into Olympic lifting and CrossFit at the military gym. But if they weren't around, and I was actually, some of the lifts I learned myself, I really broke down the form, very minute details, took notes, and never lifted more than I felt comfortable that I was going to hurt myself. That was huge. I was like, okay, there is a possibility I can do let's just say 175, but let's just do 165 and keep it there and keep hitting the repetitions at this weight that feels slightly light to me, or just a little bit heavy, and that's okay because I'm learning and I don't have an official coach. And there was a point where I was like, I can't wait to go to an actual gym. When I had more time, when my military station of duty changed, I was like, I can go to an actual CrossFit gym, see if my form was correct, get better coaching, lift harder. And when I went to a CrossFit gym, they're like, hey, man, like you actually have these lifts. You're good. There's some stuff that we want to tweak here or there to get more power, but you're lifting safely. And I think that was the biggest deal for me is when I first started out doing these really dynamic, like you said, technique driven. You can hurt yourself if you don't do it correctly. It was just like, let's stay light. Let's feel the weight, feel like it's lifting correctly and I'm doing everything correct. And recording myself on video, that's huge too. Recording yourself on video and saying, hey, does this match up the videos I've seen? Or did my shoulder move really weird one way, or my hips thrust before I should be, making my arms straight and lifting up? Those were things that I did. And they just take a lot of time, and they require you being safe and going at lighter weights. It's just the reality if you're going to do it by yourself.
Yeah, you'll find most of the subreddits are super interested in helping you do some form checks. And I think that everyone there, and there's like a YouTube community as well that's just like super all about helping you do some form checks. And I think that's super important when you're doing anything from squatting to, snatching or anything like that.
Yeah. It's the one fundamental physical health goal you should always have is not to injure yourself by trying to become fitter.
Oh yeah, that's a huge thing that I also thought about when I was in the military. You see people who like get out of the military who like end up injuring themselves, but while they're in, they're like these like fitness PT, we call it physical training PT gods. Yeah. And then they come out and then they're all injured, and it's like even on missions, like training ones, it's like, hey, this is training. Like, yeah, that drill sergeant or whoever, like that first sergeant or the sergeant is like yelling at me to run down this hill full force, and that might result in some injury. Or, hey, at CrossFit, the coach is really yelling at me to like get this going, but you still know yourself, and there's fitness boundaries, and you should, if there's something that you don't feel safe with or okay with, don't do that thing, because it's better to go to the gym tomorrow than to hurt yourself today. And that's another huge takeaway, I think.
Definitely.
Yeah. Dabe, anything for goals for 19?
Yeah. Oh man, I used to write down like numbers and everything, and I haven't done that since being injured. So I think that it's more consistency based at this point. I'd like to not spend months not able to lift. And so all of my Olympic weightlifting has been reduced to power movements. So just power snatch, power clean, stuff like that. Because it's all about catching a deep snatch, catching a deep clean. But that's where my injury happened. So at the bottom of the hole, apparently, is my weak point due to kind of the length of my legs and my lack of flexibility. So most of that is consistency. I think I'd like to truly get into a boxing and or jiu-jitsu gym just to kind of try things out. I know that where I work in Redmond, there's a jiu-jitsu spot just opened up that I kind of want to at least do a demo class there. And now that you mentioned climbing, you got me thinking about it. I used to boulder pretty heavily around Seattle. So you just talking about, climbing multiple pitches got me thinking about it a little too aggressively. So maybe it's time to re-up there.
Hey, join us in Spokane, man. That's where we'll be. So there's a lot of good rock climbing. We'll take you out.
I've been there one time, and it feels like there would be lots of crag, lots of dry, deserty rock to climb up. Mm-hmm. So I feel like that exists. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that sounds fun.
Very cool.
You're invited.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
For me, I am I'm doing my first ever competition in 2 days, this Saturday. So I've been working with a coach who did a lot of strength, Olympic, and CrossFit coaching in the Boston area, and part of a broader group. And so there's going to be this kind of regional Massachusetts get together where we'll have RX division and scale division teams, and I'll see how that goes. Figure if I can perform those movements and do all that grinding, it'll be a big achievement because I've never done anything like that before.
Oh man, I'm so jealous.
So what's it like? Like, what's the format?
I will tell you because I've been studying it all week. Okay. So there's a 3-person team, and there are 3 events. The first event is 1 rep max deadlift, and you add all the numbers for all the teammates, and a tiebreaker is the single highest number. I'm not sure how you get a tie in deadlift with 3 people, but anything's possible. And
is it sumo and conventional?
Any grip. So you can actually pick your grip, which is interesting because there's a lot of variance around the regular grip or the sumo grip.
There's a lot of mad people out there.
Yes. If you want to see crazy,
watch a just YouTube sumo deadlift record and then read the comments. Actually, never do that.
No, don't read the comments.
Live a longer life.
Yes, you will. Let's see. So event 2 is sequential. So each athlete does the same circuit. So you're going to do 12 deadlifts. You're going to do 9
after a 1 rep max.
Yes.
All right.
But the 12 deadlifts, it's a prescribed weight of 135 to 155, let's say. Then you do 9 hang power cleans, and then 6 kind of strict military presses, so shoulder to over your head, all with the same weight. Yeah. So this is all kind of 1 circuit, 1 barbell, 1 set of weight. And that's for time. And then, you have your break, and then you come back, and the third activity it's kind of a flow where you have 2 of the 3 team members doing as many repetitions of a cycle as they can in 6 minutes, or AMRAP, and that changes. So the first time it's double unders into American kettlebell swings. The second time it is wall balls, where you have like a big giant 20-pound medicine ball that you have to throw up about 10 feet in the air, and
more throwing up.
Yes, and dumbbell snatches. And then the third round is the wall balls again and push-ups, where you have to release your hands from the ground every time you do the next push-up.
Nice.
Now, so that's the first 6 minutes of each of these 3 heats. After that, there's 3 minutes where the third team member does a 500-meter row for time. So you've got 3 heats and 3 athletes. So at each heat, a different athlete's doing the row, and the other 2 athletes are doing this as many repetitions movement. So I have a 5'7" frame that is pretty speedy at stuff like burpees and snatches. I'll never put up the highest numbers, but I can just kind of like the Energizer Bunny. So
it's amazing.
And then we have a guy who's 6'6" and deadlifts probably about 525.
Shouts out.
Yeah, he's amazing. But he's going to struggle with bodyweight stuff. So sometimes these events have buy-ins and buy-outs. So the buy-in might be pull-ups or lifting your toes to the bar or double under jump ropes. And if that's a bodyweight thing, that's where he would struggle. So we're strategizing how to retain his raw power and minimize his exposure to high rep plyometric type movements, where he's going to have to physically move more weight than littler guys like his 2 teammates will, and to make sure that we will be best distributing the smaller people to the right movements. So if someone's good at kettlebells or these wall ball things, just trying to think of how to best utilize our resources. So it's kind of how do you divide the labors of your party in this kind of complex challenge?
The strategy there is super fun. And I think that's super cool.
Yeah, I'm jealous, man. Like that's a goal for me at some point in my life, is to do a CrossFit competition, probably after school.
I think, you got time. You have time on your side. As long as you stay healthy, you've got plenty of opportunities for that. All right, guys, let me pause it there and wrap it up and just say thank you, Dabe. Thank you, Michael. I really appreciate your time. And like I said, my goal is that these stories and our experiences might be helpful and might start a conversation. And for those of you listening who want to know more, get at us at Insight Check. Just write us. I'll answer you, and I'll do my best to help. In all things, it's best to stay healthy. It's best not to injure yourself. It's best to take your time. And we're not certified physical trainers, so don't take this as advice for what you should do at home. But
thank you for
the
that.
only thing I would say is it's important information. You should try to do something that fits your goals and that you can sustain. And it could be walking and catching Pokemon. It could be going to a gym and taking a class. But the more technical it gets, make sure you get help and make sure you're safe as you do it, because being injured for 6 weeks is hard, and you can't always prevent it, but you can certainly increase your chance of getting injured if you're not careful. So try not to do that. Guys, thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. Thanp you for having us on.
Yep.
All right.
Enjoyable.
Hey, Embers, great job on not recording an outro for this episode, so guess it's up to me. If you all listened to that and were as motivated and inspired as I was, then I hope that you got something really good out of it. And just remember that the good advice these fine people gave you is just a starting place, and your journey doesn't need to reflect theirs. So I hope that it inspires you to go for a walk, or go for a swim, or do a push-up, I guess. And in general, though, we want to thank Amy T. Falcone for our branding, and we want to thank Vinswept for our intro and outro. We want to thank you for going and leaving a beautiful review on iTunes. Thank you very much for doing that for us. And we want to thank each other, because you know what? Love you guys. I am spiraling on this outro. Anyway, as always, answering your cues from our collective A's, this was Insight Check. What the fuck, Embers? You gonna leave me to make an outro for your episode? Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ.